What have you learned?
I have learned that still uh, the like the things related to health issues or fear of death is still my Achilles heel. It still affects me a lot more than it should.
Well, that's totally understandable. If you don't know what's on the other side, you fear death,
Mhm.
right? If you don't know what's on the other shore, you fear death. And so the name of this game, or the purpose of this game, is to get outside of this birth and death thing. And you'll get there as long as you keep working steadily. And don't feel bad because you're fairly young. There's a lot of older people who really need some clarity about what they're headed for, right? And quite a few of them watch these YouTubes, and I'd like to reassure them that they can get there, but it takes a little dedication, a little effort to get beyond this birth and death thing,
Mhm.
right? But a belief is not nearly as good as knowledge when you're dying, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
When you're dying is
yeah,
when it really counts because belief is not. Yeah, you don't want to have to rely on your opinion. You want to know if possible, and it is possible.
Mhm. Is is there a difference between belief and faith?
They're kind of the same thing, aren't they? I mean, there's one definition of faith. Now, there's different ways to use the word faith. You could have faith in yourself that allows you to climb a mountain, and you couldn't climb that mountain without that faith. There's faith to believe in something that you wouldn't otherwise would not find believable.
Mhm.
So that's another kind of faith. And then there's the faith that allows one to keep going because one has faith, for example, in the Dharma and in the work, in the process. And so the word faith is, it's like so many other words. They can create problems or they can solve problems, but depends on how you use them and how you meet them. Now, belief, what is belief?
Belief, for me, is something that is an idea that I have no evidence or proof of.
What's the difference between belief and opinion?
Belief and opinion. So, opinion can be just like my personal opinion. Belief is something that a lot of other people believe in too.
So do you believe that the name on your birth certificate is your name?
I mean, it's a name given to me by parents.
So you believe that?
Yeah, I mean, they told me, so I just trust them and I believe them. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So a belief not doesn't necessarily have to be something without evidence, as you said.
yeah. Belief is something that for which I have no evidence. If there is evidence,
But you
then
believe it that your name is the same as your birth certificate.
yeah, because name doesn't really matter that much. Like it's not something that matters that much to me.
Do you
That's
believe
why I'm
do you believe the United States is a country?
uh, like officially with all the like the paperwork. Yeah, I believe that.
Okay. So is that belief, opinion, faith? What do you want? What word do you want to use? The main thing is that we get our words straight.
Like for United States, I would not call that a belief because for me the evidence of seeing United States as a country on paper and recognized by other countries in the world is good enough evidence to believe in that.
So then what would you call it if not a belief?
That would be so it's a country, it's an idea that is recognized, and so I would call that a fact.
Okay, good. So there's fact. I just want to make sure we have our words straight because words, as Wittgenstein, Wittten, Wittgenstein pointed out, there's no end to trouble, especially in philosophy, with words, right? And most of philosophy is misunderstanding words. So we have facts, we have beliefs, and we have opinions.
And faith.
And we have faith. All right, well, that's good enough to get started.
Mm-hmm.
Questions?
Yeah, so I was thinking that
You've left out knowledge. You've left out knowledge.
Knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, which is the one you want.
Yeah, so I was thinking, how can I deal with this stuff?
Which stuff?
Health issues or the fear of death. And
the only way you can do that is with insight. Everything else is going to be repression or substitution or denial or suppression, repression, denial, substitution. You got insight's the only way that I know of, because you're an animal. I mean, you're in an animal body.
Mm-hmm. I also ended up with only two ways with that. One is to know for certain that nothing bad is going to happen, and the second one was to know for certain that that I don't need to care about this thing at all.
That you don't need to what?
That I don't need to care about this thing at all, and which can happen only if
animals don't get that choice. Animals don't get that choice. Every cell in your body wants to survive. Did you see the tweet I just sent out about they're using brain organoids in tissue culture to make computers?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Okay. Well, in Switzerland, some firm has taken, and I know they can do this because I did it myself. You take a petri dish about this size, and you put some brain cells in it, and they continue to live. They continue to function because you've given them the nutrients they need, and the oxygen, so on and so forth. They can live quite a while. And depending on the cells, they can grow, right? And they will grow in tissue culture. Well, now they're using that as the basis for a computer. Now the problem, and that's going to be very, very energy efficient, because that's the most energy efficient calculation machine that we know of, is the cell, right? In this case, the brain cell. The problem with that is those cells want to live. They want to survive. They will do anything they can to survive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what life is, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you attach a supercomputer or an incredible mental intelligence to an organism like that, you're going to end up with a new organism that wants to survive above all else. I don't know if they see that, but if they did clearly, then they'd realize how absolutely dangerous that is. It's literally the most, I can't think of anything more dangerous than that. Maybe nuclear war, playing around with nasty viruses. So the point is that you can only by repress, it's going to take more energy to repress the will to live and the fear of dying. And sooner or later, you're going to face death. That's one of the reasons for this channel. And so a belief is not going to hold you very well, as you learn this week, right?
I mean, I think I already knew, but I thought that.
You thought you already knew what?
No, I mean, I knew that that belief is not gonna work.
Okay,
it's
good.
Just that until it's in the face, I can just procrastinate on it. I don't need to think about it, and that'll be okay. And that has been okay until it comes up.
That's what a lot of people do, and that can be very, very tragic, because as they face death, and no one knows when death will come. And if the death is gradual, then they're faced with that horrible uncertainty of not knowing what's going to happen, and feeling that they're going to lose their very self. They're going to die. They're going to lose everything they've ever loved, everybody they've ever loved, everything they've ever cherished. They feel like a horrible loss. Some people, when they're facing death. Now others just get depressed and just give up and say, oh well, I'm dead. But yeah, that's why you need to know.
So there's no way to basically deal with it other than knowing, getting the insight to know that death is not real death.
Well, it is real death, but it's only death of the body. Well, you know, Jesus dealt with it another way, which is another way if you've got that kind of courage. But Buddha, if you look at Buddha, how did he deal with it? When he left the palace and he saw, according to the legend, he saw old age, sickness, and death. And he went, what gives? This is not cool. And so he spent his life, he discovered the path beyond birth and death. And here we are still talking about it. Now, Jesus' way was different.
What did he do?
He had faith. He also had knowledge, frankly, but he had knowledge, but he left an example for people without that knowledge and said to have faith. But Jesus most assuredly had knowledge, the same knowledge that the Buddha has.
So because he had knowledge, it worked for him, but it doesn't work for people who don't have knowledge. Is that it?
If you have sufficient faith, it could work.
But if it's like a belief...
That's for some people. I'm talking about you. In this case.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, faith is all they need. Modern man has trouble with that.
Mm-hmm. So is that faith like the kind of religious faith that people have, like very strict religious faith?
It's that, and it's, and I quote, the faith that passeth understanding. So Jesus taught at many different levels at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So when he says, the kingdom of God is within you, or he says, my kingdom is not of this world. There's different ways to interpret that, and depending on different people's, that's the genius of Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. He talked to people at all these levels at the same time with these beautiful parables. Mm-hmm. But for modern man, I'm not sure. Is faith enough for you?
I mean, I still get amazed by people who are able to have that kind of faith, because I'm not able to.
Correct. And hence we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's another way besides faith, and that's insight.
Mm-hmm.
These days, frankly, you could just pretty much go by science, but that still won't get you to the loving nature of the substrate. But they're up against the wall now.
And that other kind of faith can still lead people to awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I don't know the answer to that. It's hard to know. Let's look at Moses. You can look at Moses. You can look at Aquinas. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
But if you listen to Jesus, he says, and this is really interesting to contemplate, had you sufficient faith, you could move mountains. So that shows a deep, deep, deep understanding of reality.
what's the difference between having that sufficient faith versus delusion?
Having that what?
Having that kind of like sufficient faith versus delusion.
In I was a psychiatrist in my prior life, and one of the things that was taught kind of off the cuff was the difference between a saint and a madman is the advice that the voices give them. I mean, many people believe that religious belief is delusional. Of course, many people don't. We're not here to attack religion. On the contrary, there's many, without religion, I mean, Buddhism was a religion. Taoism, not really, but, and Sufism is built on a religion, as is Christian mysticism, although it's a kind of complicated relationship. They tended to excommunicate their illuminates. And even the Jews excommunicated Spinoza, I think. I hope I have that right. So religion is for another purpose, pretty much, I would say, at this point. And so people may become awakened in spite of the religion. But we don't know. We'd have to go back to another time when the religion, whether it's Christianity or Islam or even Buddhism, the different flavors of Buddhism, was embedded into the culture. I mean, it was the culture. The government was Christian or Buddhist or whatever, effectively. Does that make sense? So the one thing about the teaching is it always updates according to the time, authentic teaching. And in the times we're in, most people can't just go to a holy book and say, all right, well, this is going to save me. Or go to a preacher or a priest and say, he's going to save me. Women and men aren't like that anymore. Okay?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of fascinating for me to see that even some very intelligent, not even very educated, not intelligent, but educated people, because intelligence can be in everyone. Educated people still have such a strong faith that they are able to deal with the problems and issues of life.
Well, it's important that you know that there are levels. Okay, you use the word faith. There's more than that. There's understanding of the revelation. There's understanding of the resurrection. There's understanding of the life of Christ as a template for humanity that are very, very, very refined and rarefied, right? And so, you can have huge intellect still within the framework of Christianity. It's a struggle, but it can be done. And if we're honest, frankly, oftentimes they run afoul of the church, there's the church and then there's Christianity. Who was it that said religion is the detritus? Religion is the detritus of spirituality.
What's the word? Detritus?
Yeah, you want to look it up? D-E-T.
Yeah.
Look it up and tell people what it means, please.
Detritus means Detritus.
Yes, sir.
It means waste or debris of any kind.
Yeah, the debris. Religion becomes the debris of spirituality, the detritus. That's one opinion. But again, we are not here to bash religion. On the contrary, we're here to go deeper into religion and see where the common core in all the religions lies. But even that's not the purpose here. The purpose here is for an individual to find some guidance if they sincerely want to wake up, and some comfort if they're facing death. Okay, sir?
Yep.
But don't repress it. Go into the fear. That's what Buddha did to all of our, you know.
And by
Death is the one thing you can be certain of, isn't it not? Can you be
yeah,
certain of anything else in this life?
no,
Yeah. So don't throw away the only certainty you've got. And don't be afraid. It's what adds meaning to life. It's what makes this life so extraordinary. And there'll be times when you won't mind at all going back where you came from. Ask me a question about reincarnation.
reincarnation. So I think I have a question on reincarnation and near-death experiences. I have seen videos of them.
We'll see you've
What?
already constricted the question so far.
Okay, yeah. Let's just talk about reincarnation then. What are your thoughts on reincarnation? Is it real?
It very well may be, but not from this side, from the other side.
What other side?
Where do we come from? To where do we return? What are we really? What were we before we incarnated in these animal forms, these human forms? Now, from that side, there may be something like that going on, but it's from that side, not from the human side. So if people think they're going to take their little bodies and their little egos and, you know, be born as the Queen of Sheba or whatever, I think that's silliness. But does the expanse, I don't have any words.
Mm-hmm.
It does what it wants. It.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think there's something like soul?
Who said that?
So the idea
Oh,
of a
you just put
soul.
words in my mouth, did you not?
No, so when you said that people cannot take their little
If by
things
soul you
with
mean
them.
ego, yes. They're prideful little selves. No, why would you carry that across? I mean, it's not even going to make it this lifetime. Do you see that at all what I'm saying? It's very, very difficult to articulate. But a notion like that, remember, time and space are illusory. These are emergent properties of mind. And the ocean of consciousness is like an almost, it's an ocean of consciousness that is so vast we can't comprehend. But it doesn't take up any space. I hope I haven't confused you too much, but okay, good. Just plant those seeds, I guess, or whatever. Because you'd asked me about reincarnation before.
Yeah, yeah.
So contemplate. Think for yourself. Question?
Yeah, I think I also wanna touch base on near-death experiences.
Okay.
Uh,
NDEs. I've had a couple.
so whenever I never had one, but I've seen the videos of like other people who talk about that, and it appears to me that maybe when the brain goes in certain state, people are able to have those experiences, but that doesn't mean that they actually died, and like something else might be going on.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
On your opinion?
No, on like what are your thoughts on your interpretation of NDEs? Not mine. Yeah, not mine.
If you deprive the brain of oxygen in any way, shape, or form, you're going to get strange phenomena. Right? Now, some of those strange phenomena exist without near-death experiences. I had a patient, a woman once, who came to the hospital. She was about 68 years old. Came to the hospital complaining that she was leaving her body and walking around the apartment, and it bothered her. And she had hypertension, and so what I did was with a nurse was we lowered her blood pressure acutely with well, it took several days of monitoring, and finally another episode came on, and when we lowered her blood pressure with what did we use? Amyl nitrate or something like that, something that acts very quickly. Her body the thing came back into her body. She came back into her body. So you don't need a near-death experience for that. That happens to people all the time. Not all the time, you know. And shamans also leave their body and fly around, and that's what the Nazca lines, probably what they're about as well. So there's all kinds of phenomena like that, but it's really hard to say anything because the brain's being deprived of oxygen. Right? So that's only one kind of near-death experience where you have a deprivation of oxygen. Why? What? I don't keep up with YouTube on the near-death experiences. I'm a physician, but tell me, what did you see that struck you?
Like, I see all these people who, like, basically, who were medically dead, or like whose heart stopped, and medically they should not be alive. But then people...
The brain tissue stays alive after the heart has stopped. The whole body doesn't die at the same time. So if you're using a stopped heart as death, that's wrong.
And then they were like, oh, I was able to see, like, the surgery being performed on me. I was able to hear things very far away from me and things like that.
That's possible, but those things can occur without anesthesia and being dead, right? These things are described by yogis and things like that in India and Nepal and Tibet and America. You don't need near death to leave your body and travel like that necessarily.
But then we don't, like, at least I don't know whether that's even real or not. Maybe it's imagination.
What's real?
People leaving their body, is that imagination, or can that be real too?
Let's see. You're looking at a screen. There's a man talking at you and he's holding up a thumb drive. Is he real?
I mean, is it a movie or is it a person?
That's not the question.
Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's real because I know behind the screen there's an actual person and a camera is telecasting.
But I'm not here.
I mean, not in front of me, but in some other place, you are there.
Let's drop this for now, okay? But someday, this question about is it real? You'll see that for what the kind of question that actually is. Okay? All right.
Okay.
So next question. Near-death experiences, yes, they happen, but you don't need near-death to make them happen or to have them happen.
Okay. Got it.
As far as I know. I mean, I don't know which ones you're talking about.
I mean, the only other form of experience I haven't mentioned is people basically see a white light and then they see Jesus or like their family members or someone who helped them to like...
Well, that definitely happens, but why do you need to die for that? Why do you have to be near death for that? Have you read Muktananda, I think? What is it? Is it Muktananda? Autobiography of a Yogi?
Oh, yeah, I read that book.
Okay, well, he had the similar things, right? The blue pearl or something?
He saw, I think, a blue light or something.
Yeah. Okay, so these are not extraordinary experiences for meditators.
But then
Now their
that
value,
doesn't
that's
mean.
another question. Go ahead.
But having such experience doesn't really mean that they actually had an experience beyond the body and mind.
Well, they still had a mind, right? If they're seeing objects and interacting or whatever they're doing.
I mean, their brain is functioning, yeah.
Okay, so what's extraordinary?
I think the claim that it was a divine experience rather than just their brain
It's
imagining
all a
imagine.
divine experience. It's all a divine experience. All of it. This right now is a divine experience. But for some reason people don't want to see that because they've got veils and veils and veils of mistaken thinking between themselves and God. I mean, this is clearly a divine experience. Where else would it come from? I mean, seriously, do you believe that there's like these hardcore? Well, no, let's just keep going. But yeah, so you need to decide draw a line between holy and unholy, divine and undivine, and tell me where that line is. Where is it, by the way?
I think then again I think I'm talking from a point of belief or faith.
No, I'm not asking you to believe or faith. I'm just trying to ask you to describe where the line between holy or divine or sacred and non-holy is. Where's that line?
So for me, the line is when something is beyond body and beyond mind, or something that has a like a divine intervention kind of thing.
So divine interventions are beyond body and mind? Describe one.
So like one example would be like healing.
That is mind and body.
I mean, like the kind of healing Jesus did,
That's
like
still
the
body.
miraculous kind of healing.
That's body. I mean, he literally lays his hands on them, does he not?
Yeah, but then their body were not recovering on their own.
Oh, so you're talking about miracles. What you see as
Yeah,
miracles.
yeah, miracles.
Well, maybe someday you'll encounter real healers and you'll see that they can do that without leaving their bodies. It's not. So if it's not a miracle, it's not divine to you.
I mean, if it's not a miracle and if it's not an experience beyond the body and beyond the mind, then
So
it's
describe an
kind of.
experience beyond the body and the mind. I'm confused.
So, like, let's say, so the way I feel only my body, let's say, my body or like my experience,
Mm-hmm.
somehow magically I'm able to kind of feel everyone around me, like just like I'm able to feel, experience that I'm not just this body, but every body out there. Then that can be one divine experience.
So what's the line?
The line is like experience that is not limited by myself.
Interesting. Okay. So if you weren't limited by yourself, you would be divine.
So now that I don't know.
What else would you be?
I mean, there might be different ranks or spectrum of divinity.
Really?
I mean, David Hawkins used to have that numbering list, that ranking list. Um,
Yeah, but
I
David
don't know.
Hawkins was working within a Christian framework, and he was not describing divinity, he was describing levels of consciousness.
Mhm.
Do you think that one bird or one person is less God than you?
No, No, I think we like person or bird or animal. Everyone is kind of the same thing.
And what is that thing?
But I mean, I would say like life form.
Okay. What is life if not divine?
It's like a difference between like king and like their servant. So like I see like God as the king,
Mm-hmm.
and then like life forms as like a small minuscule fragment of that. But and I'm not sure if I can call
So you can
that
see how
divine.
Jesus, can you see how Jesus is just so important? As the incarnation of God, as a symbol for people? Okay. That's one way of looking at things, and that's fine. So the line between God and his people, or her people, is like the line between a king and his subjects. Is that what you're
Yeah,
telling me?
except in non-duality, everyone is king and the subject. Like the
Now, what is
essence
this
is the same,
non-duality stuff?
or like the Tao, or
What is this non-duality and Tao stuff?
so they're like multiple schools of thought, right? One is like Taoism, one is like Hinduism. Uh,
What's the difference?
the difference is in Taoism, focusing on the essence, and they talk about everything is has the same essence.
And what do Hindus
They,
teach?
sorry,
And what do Hindus teach about the essence?
yeah, in Hinduism they teach that basically people have these souls, and these souls are like a minuscule fragment of God,
Mm-hmm.
of a higher power. And then we all need to do our duty to be able to merge with God or go back to God,
And do they
which we
teach that
are.
the essence of people is different?
So they say like even if it's a small particle, the essence, like the thing it is made of, it's the same as the God, but God has a supreme
So a
reigning
person, a homeless person, has the same essence as the king?
as the king in the world. Yeah,
The same essence.
yeah, the same essence.
So that's like Jesus saying, what you do unto the least of these, you do unto me.
Yeah.
So Hindus teach that everything has the same, everyone has the same essence.
Yeah.
Okay, now how's that different than Taoism?
So in Hinduism, there's still a distinction between people and God. People can't be God.
But we're talking about essence.
Essence, yeah.
Or is in Hinduism, is the essence of a person divine?
Essence of a person is divine, yes.
Okay, so what stands between that essence and God? I mean, God is divine, your essence is divine. What stands in the way? What's standing in the way between you and God in Hinduism?
I think Hinduism is very opposed to the idea of people thinking themselves as God, as having the same essence.
But that's something else. Oh, they're opposed to the idea of people thinking they have the same essence as God?
I think on one hand they do tell that they have the same essence, but then there's always this king to subject relationship, even with that essence too.
Okay, now let me ask you. Do you believe you have the same essence as God?
From what I have read, and yeah, it seems that
Close enough. All right. So then what keeps your essence from merging with God's essence?
I mean, when I will die, it's gonna merge anyways.
No, but while you're alive.
While I'm alive, I mean, God essence is everywhere around me.
Correct.
So,
Except in you?
so my essence is already merged with God in that way.
Correct. All right. And you just told me that when you die, you will merge with God. Is that correct?
No, that was not correct. I mean,
You
it's
just told
already
me
merged
that.
with
You
God.
told me that. You just said it. When I die, I'm going to merge with God anyway. My essence will merge with God anyway. You just said that.
Yeah, I didn't think it through
Do you
to
believe
say
it?
that. Mm, it was
A
a
slip.
very old idea.
Okay.
Yes, like, yeah.
So what will happen to your, if you don't believe that, what will happen to your essence when you die?
It will. So now there are two things. One is from what I have read. It's gonna,
No, but now I'm asking you.
to me, it feels it will wither away.
Your essence will wither away.
Yeah,
And what was your essence made of again?
I don't know.
Okay. So I can see why you're afraid, right? I guess. So you need to find out, no?
Yeah.
Find out what your essence is or is not. Now, the problem with religions, and this is all religions, is sometimes they use a little fear. You know, they like throw in a little fear with they use carrots and sticks to motivate people. Now, we don't do that here. So the question is there some fear in there that was taught to you or something?
Fear.
I mean, Christianity, they say you're going to go to hell. In Islam, they say they promise you, the seventh heaven or something.
So definitely,
In Hindu, don't they sometimes talk about reincarnation? You're going to be reincarnated as a toad?
yeah, in India there is a fear of like being punished, or like something bad is gonna happen if we act in a certain
So the
way.
question is, can you think clearly if there's still that fear there, that conditioned fear?
If the fear is still there,
Then you can't think clearly. And you can't perceive clearly. I mean, I know that's just as a psychologist, psychiatrist, right? If you have fear, you can't see straight. That's why your greatest warriors know no fear, right? At least not while they're fighting.
so people aren't afraid all the time. It's just that it's like fear of death. So there's a
Yeah,
fear,
but you're the one with the fear of death, and that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of here. You're afraid that your essence will wither away.
yeah.
What is your essence? How would you know if it hadn't withered away already?
Because I still feel like I exist.
You do exist?
Yeah.
What
it
exists?
is.
What exists?
So something is there that has this body
Now, what is it?
that can think. That I don't know.
So you're sure you exist, but you don't know what exists. And you're worried that whatever that thing is, it's going to wither away when you die.
Yeah.
And that makes you afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to get that straightened out before you get much older, my friend. Seriously. Because you don't want to face death that way. You really don't.
I mean, it's not only death, it's also like, let's say if I get disabled or something.
Right, exactly.
Then,
Exactly. Yeah, that's why you need to, that's the reason these streams of endeavor or thought or inquiry, the perennial philosophy, the search for truth, the search for God, has been going on since the beginning of time, human time, is because it's kind of important. It's very important. It's the most important thing. So welcome to the club, right? You've got to find out, and it's the sooner the better, because what if you do get disabled? Or what if you do get, you die, God forbid? or you get a diagnosis of something horrible. And see, you complain about the fear of something like that happening to you, but that's just a sign to you, I think, of which direction to look, because this is a problem to be solved for you if you're afraid of death that way. I mean, who wants to live in fear? That's no life.
Yeah.
But I'm confident that if you keep going, there will be an answer for you, but you got to do it yourself. Every man and woman, every man has to do this for themselves, ultimately, in my opinion. Or at least the ones I'm speaking to now. Okay, but that's a pretty broad swath of people. And there's a lot of people who are anxious and afraid right now, and they needn't be. Okay, sir? We're going to have to stop. Anything before we go?
I just have one small question. So just
Sure.
a few minutes ago, you said, do not repress the fear, go into the fear. So what do you mean by that, go into the fear?
Well, repression doesn't work very long, and it's energetically very expensive.
Yeah.
All right? So you don't want to repress. If you spend your whole life wasting it repressing something that you don't want to face, and then you have to face it anyway. So repression just doesn't work. It's a primitive psychological defense. Suppression, which we'll talk about some other time, is a little bit healthier, but you still don't want that in this case. Now, what was your question?
So you said go into the fear.
Yeah, so you say that something's going to die, and you're calling it your essence, right? But then I ask you, what are you really? And I think you've accepted that you're not your body, because we could swap your arms out, swap your body out, you'd still be you. So if you're not your body, then what are you? Well, you say your mind, but what is your mind actually? And what is the essence of mind? How much of your mind is just something you've been conditioned to think? And if your mind is seeing or hearing, well, people lose their seeing and their hearing. So it can't be those, because they keep their minds, right? Like Borges lost his sight, but he was still very much Borges. Borges, the great South American writer. So to go into the fear, you need to go into the subject at hand. And that's life and death, birth and death. Okay, sir? So going into it means approaching it the way a kid would, like with the mind of a child, going, well, wait a minute. I've been taught all this stuff. I was taught this by the Hindus, the Taoists say this, the Buddhists say that, the Christians say that. I sincerely want to understand. That's all. And then ask. Because whether you know it or not, this universe is trying to answer you. But you can't do it with fear. And you can't do it with too much hope either. Those things are somewhat irrelevant. And I hate to say the hope part, but that's true. I remember I wasn't much older than you, and I read somewhere that I was going to have to give up hope and fear or something like that. And I went, oh my God, I hope someday I can get beyond hope and fear. And I thought the whole thing was ridiculous. How can you get beyond hope and fear? But yeah, you can. You can, and ultimately you will. And then you realize there's nothing to fear, and you couldn't hope for anything better. Not with this human mind. But seriously. So it all works out just fine. But you got to keep going. Otherwise you'll just suffer, right? And that's the other thing. Who wants to live a life of suffering when you don't have to?
Yeah.
Okay, sir?
Yeah.
Hasta luego. Vaya con Dios.
Yeah.
Keep on working on this. Seriously. It's your food and medicine. Okay? All right. Take care.